In this lecture, we're going to store the file data in the database. We're able to store the file in the storage successfully. However, we don't know who uploaded the file. There is additional information we'll want to associate with the file. We'll use the database to store additional information about the file. We're going to continue working in the upload component file. Specifically, we want to store the data in the database if the upload was a success. There isn't any point in storing the data if the upload was a failure. We're going to add the code in the third function of the stateChanged event. We'll store the data before we update the progress bar. Even though the upload is finished, we're not finished with storing the data. We don't want to let the user assume they can exit out of the application when we haven't saved the data yet. It makes sense to display that information last. We're going to start by creating an object that will represent the data we'd like to store in the database. We'll create a constant called song at the very start of the third function. There are a couple of things we'll want to store. First, we want to store the ID of the user who uploaded the song. Information about the user can be retrieved through the authentication service. We'll need to import the authentication object from the Firebase configuration file. At the top of the script block, update the import statement to retrieve the authentication object. Back in the song object, we'll add a property called UID. Set it to authentication.currentuser.uid. The current user property is an object that represents the current user who is logged into the application. If they're not logged in, this will be set to null. We don't have to worry about the object being empty because the user won't be able to visit this page if they're not logged in. It's safe to assume the user information is available. We can use this object to access the user's ID. The ID is unique. It was assigned to them when they registered an account. This will help us identify who uploaded the song. Afterward, we'll store the display name. Create a property called displayName. Set it to authentication.currentuser.displayName. We're storing the name because we want to display the name in the player when the user selects a song. The player isn't functional, but when we get to it, the name will come in handy. The next properties we'll want to store will be called original name and modified name. Set both of them to task.snapshot.ref.name. There are two things I want to note about this. Firstly, we're creating duplicate properties that store the same value. It's common practice to store the same value twice, depending on what the value will be used for. The application we're building allows the user to modify the name of the song after uploading it. If they update the name, then we'll have to make two requests to Firebase. One request to the database and another to the storage to rename the file. To cut those requests in half, we can have one property that will hold the original name and another property to hold the modified name. The modified name is what will be displayed on the front end. It'll be the property that will be modified if the user wishes to change the name. We won't have to rename the file in the storage. This is entirely optional, but it's a great way to cut down the amount of requests you'll have to make. The second thing I want to note is the value we're using for the two properties. The task object comes with a snapshot of the current upload. The snapshot object holds information about the current state of the upload. This object is the same snapshot object we're passed into the first function of the stateChanged event. The snapshot object will hold the reference to the upload. The reference represents the path to the file and its information. By using it, we can retrieve the name of the file. The next property we'll want to store is the genre. Set the genre property to an empty string. We'll leave the property empty. We can let the user set it later. In some cases, you'll be able to find the genre in the metadata of the file. If you insist on checking if the metadata exists for the genre, you can grab it with Firebase. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the File-Metadata documentation page. For this course, we won't be going that far. You can implement this yourself if it's something you'd like to do. Afterward, we'll add a property called comment count. Set it to 0. Users will be able to leave comments for songs. We'll want to keep track of how many comments were made to a song. This property will help us keep track of that. The last thing we'll want to store is the URL to the file. The song can't be played if we don't know where it's stored publicly. The URL to the file can be retrieved through the reference object. It comes with a function that will return a public URL to the file. Right after we create the object, add a new property called URL. Set it to task.snapshot.ref.getDownloadURL. This function will return a promise. We'll use async await to handle the promise. Add the async keyword to the function and the await keyword before the function call. It's time to submit the data to Firebase. Open the database in the Firebase console. We have a collection for users. We'll want to create another collection for songs. It's important we keep the user and song data separate from each other. This makes it easier to search through each collection individually if we ever need to. Click on Start Collection. The name of the collection will be called Songs. Firebase will ask us to create a document for the collection. We'll add some random information. Don't worry about what you input because we'll delete the document in a moment. After clicking Save, Firebase will create the collection and document. Click on the document inside the Songs collection. On the top right corner, we can delete the document. We'll be creating the document in the function. Back in the editor, open the Firebase configuration file. The first thing we'll do is create a collection object for the songs. We did something similar for the users collection. Below the users collection variable definition, define another variable called songs collection. Its value will be the object returned by the db.collection function. This function requires the name of the collection we'd like to select. Pass in songs. We're creating a variable because we want to be able to interact with the songs collection. We'll be dealing with the songs collection a couple of times in our application. It would be a good idea to create a reference for it where we can import it in our components. We'll add the songs collection variable to the export list. This export will allow us to use the collection in any of the components. Go back to the upload component file. We're going to import the collection we just created. Luckily, we're already importing the Firebase file. We can add on to the list of properties to import. The last step is to use the collection object to add the song. Scroll down to the function. After defining the song object, call the add function on the songs collection object. There are two functions for adding a document to a collection. The first is the set function. The function is what we use to add the user to the users collection. The second function is called add. The difference between the two is that the set function will allow you to assign a custom ID to the document. The add function will instruct Firebase to generate an ID for you. We're going to use the add function because we don't care about setting a custom ID for the document. It's quick and easy. This function has one argument, which is the object to add to the database. We'll pass in the song object. This function returns a promise. We'll add the await keyword before the function to wait for a response. We're not going to store the value returned because we aren't going to use it. We're finished. We'll want to test if this works. Before we do, go to the Firebase console and clear the storage. We want to start with a fresh slate. I've deleted the files in my app's storage ahead of time. Pause the video to do the same. Once you've got that taken care of, go ahead with uploading a file. After some time has passed, we will receive a success message. Go to the Firebase console to verify that the file was uploaded. It should still be placed inside the songs directory. Great. The song is still being stored in the storage. After verifying it's being stored, go to the database to confirm that the song information was inserted. Inside the Songs collection, a new document was added. It was assigned a random ID. That's perfectly fine. We don't need a custom ID at this time. We're finished. We've created an elegant solution for uploading music. There are many ways we can improve the upload process, but I don't want to spend too much time as I've covered everything I wanted to cover. There is one thing I want to add. I want to create a fallback solution for users who aren't able to drag and drop files for one reason or another. We'll tackle this in an upcoming lecture.